to you, you. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning to you. And many more, and many more, and many more. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome, welcome, welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. It is Stay Free Friday. It is Get Free Friday. I hope that you're doing well. Um, as the song say, tragedies are commonplace. All kinds of diseases. People are slipping away. But I want to say thank you, Creator God, for all you've done for me. I don't take it for granted being able to wake up, wake up in peace, wake up in peace with a roof over my head, wake up in peace with my right mind, wake up in peace with as the elders would say, a reasonable portion of health, to be able to move my body and not have anybody dress me or put my clothes on for me today. Those to me are all riches in this day, age, and time. So I hope that you are doing well. We're going to be reading some short passages today from our two books, Live Nourished, Make Peace with Food, Banish Body Shame, and Reclaim Joy, which is about nutrition. And we're going to be reading a small portion from Moving Beyond Broke, The Power of Perseverance in Personal Finance. We're starting a new chapter in this book. We're doing a short show today. So let me hop right into the reading. Today's reading is coming from, in Live Nourished, today's reading is coming from chapter 3, and we are on page 58. Going to be reading through to page 60, and we're looking at the topic of weight stigma. Janet Tomiyama, Janet Tomiyama, a professor of psychology at the University of California, Los Angeles, defines weight stigma, also known as weight bias or weight-based discrimination, as the social rejection and devaluation that accrues to those who do not comply with prevailing social norms of adequate body weight and shape. Weight stigma can increase body dissatisfaction, a leading risk factor in the development of eating disorders. Let's be super clear here. It is never acceptable to discriminate against someone based on their size, but shaming, blaming, and concern trolling happen everywhere, at work, at school, in the home, and even at the doctor's office. In fact, weight discrimination occurs more frequently than gender or even age discrimination. Now, we can kind of see that in our own society, especially just take a glance on social media and you'll see some of the videos that roll out about people that have a weight stigma attached to it. One study of primary care physicians found that more than 50% viewed obese patients as awkward, unattractive, and non-compliant. More than one-third of these physicians characterized obese patients as weak-willed, sloppy, and lazy. In another study, 45% of a sample of physicians agreed that they have a negative reaction to these individuals. So it makes it hard to treat someone with dignity when you have a negative reaction to them, right? Another study of military family physicians found that physicians' stereotypical views of finding these individuals lazy increased by 145% between 1998 and 2005, with younger physicians more likely to endorse this attitude, which means it's still being embedded into our society. Reviewing these statistics, it shouldn't be a surprise that many fat patients avoid seeking medical care at all because of weight stigma. If a patient is receiving the message that they are unwelcomed or devalued in a clinical setting and feel ignored and mistreated, they are actually less likely to go, which does not bode well for their health outcomes. Not to mention that those with a higher BMI are nearly 3 times as likely as persons with normal BMI to say they have been denied appropriate medical care. And remember, last time we looked at the inherent racist system of the BMI to begin with, and yet people still use it. It's still on people's medical reports. Medical professionals themselves are not immune to experiencing weight bias. Medical students with a higher BMI report that clinical work can be particularly challenging, and those with a higher BMI who internalize anti fat attitudes also report more depressive symptoms and alcohol or substance abuse. It bears repeating that weight stigma is dangerous. It can increase the risk for adverse psychological and behavioral issues, including depression, poor body image, and binge eating. And weight stigma also poses a significant threat to psychological and physical health. It is a risk factor for depression, body dissatisfaction, and low self esteem. Those who experience weight based stigma also engage in more frequent binge eating, are at an increased risk for eating disorder symptoms, and are more likely to have a diagnosis for binge eating disorder. What does weight stigma sound like from accrual humans, from actual humans who experience it? I wrote an Instagram post on the subject in 2020, and I received some comments from those who are willing to tell their stories. These comments were taken from my actual post with the names removed. One patient I was treating for neck pain had previously been told by another doctor the pain would improve if weight was lost. Neck pain. I was so angry that I couldn't hide my emotions. How the heck can neck pain be caused by being fat? That the client sent me to lose weight prior to conceiving isn't the problem. The real problem is doctors not doing thorough evaluations and listening to their patients. In January, I was severely anemic due to extreme bleeding. The hospital refused to treat me. They told me the bleeding was caused by my diet. I went to another hospital. It was an 8 cantaloupe-sized fibroids. 8. So crazy that you shared this because I went to see my doctor for constant aches, pains, and chills. I was told losing weight is the answer to my issues. I understand, but also I've been bigger my entire life and I've never experienced chills or aches before. Unfortunately, these stories are not surprising because there is widespread weight bias in the medical field. Healthcare professionals are told of the obesity epidemic that is plaguing society, but rarely discussed are the social and environmental factors that can affect your health. The lack of acceptance of body diversity, which drives diet cycling, which contributes to weight cycling, which affects your weight, and the way in which fat bodies are unwelcomed in society. One of the biggest forms of stigma is biased healthcare, but stigma also comes in the form of individuals not having equal access to basic human necessities. Next week, hopefully, when we come back, we'll be talking about the lack of inclusivity. We're moving to our money book today. We are now in chapter 2, and this chapter is entitled Money Looks Better in the Bank, or Saving. And we're going to look at her introduction and then her section entitled Dream Big, Think Small. We're reading from page 24 to 27. The author says, I had a lot going on when I was 16 years old. I was a typical teen in most ways. I loved spending time with my close group friends. We spent a lot of our free time hanging out at the mall, going from store to store without a particular goal in mind. It was less about shopping and more about being together. It was our go to spot in a place where we could see and be seen, and occasionally buy something with the little money we had. Our neighborhoods and each of our houses were also regular and free hangout spots. We would get together to just chill and gossip about our day. These get togethers were simple and didn't require much money. On the weekends, we would usually go to a teen club or to the movies. We would pool our money together for food and entry fees just to make sure our whole group got in on the fun, regardless of who had money. This period of my life was marked by simplicity in how we chose to spend our time and our money. Schoolwork also kept me busy. After spending 8 to 10 hours at school, factoring in travel to and from, I often had a few hours worth of homework in the evenings. I also decided to take night classes for extra help after realizing that math was not my strong suit. Ironic, I know. I took my academics seriously and was always striving to improve my grades. But there was more to my life than school and friends. My family was going through a transitional period at that time. We went from a two-parent household to a one-parent household, and my mom worked long hours to make ends meet. I was the oldest of six siblings. Four of us lived in the same home. And after school, I had to pick up my younger siblings, get them home, make sure they did their homework. By 16, I knew how to grocery shop, use public transportation to get just about anywhere within St. Louis, write a check to pay bills, get dinner started before my mom came home from work. At times, this meant missing out on my after school programs, doubling up on homework assignments, or canceling on my friends. It was a lot of work, but I loved my siblings and wanted to do everything possible to help. With all this going on, I was shocked when a few months after my 16th birthday, my mom suggested I look for a job. Getting a job during high school had never been on my agenda, and quite frankly, I was offended that she even suggested it. But her awful advice to my teenage mind went beyond the job. She also encouraged me to save $20 a week out of every paycheck for a rainy day. I hated this idea. I did get a part-time cashier job at Burlington Coat Factory because it felt like the coming of age thing to do. And I was excited to finally have money that I could spend on whatever I wanted. Back then, my priorities were expenses like movie tickets, shopping at Forever 21 or American Eagle, and buying every pair of Jordans that came out. But I still resisted the idea of saving $20 from each paycheck. Not only did it seem like an insignificant amount to save in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like a lot to cut out of each paycheck when I was working so hard physically and mentally to earn $6.50 an hour. I barely brought home $100 a week after taxes, but I never realized how tiring working in retail could be. I had been to the store hundreds of times with my mother before working there, and it never occurred to me how hard those employees were working. The constant moving, noise, taking orders from my boss and coworkers left me feeling exhausted at the end of each shift. This seemed counterintuitive to me even as a 16-year-old, but I found most things at that job to be new and shocking. I remember crying in the bathroom on my first day because I had no idea what any of the onboarding paperwork meant that my supervisor required me to sign. How is a 16-year-old supposed to know what a W-4 form is? Was I signing my life away? I got through it, but it was an overwhelming experience. After all that stress, I felt entitled to the freedom to spend the little money I earned however I pleased. Saving it for something that might never happen just didn't make sense to me, so I didn't do it. Dream big, think small. It turns out that ignoring my mom's advice cost me $49,112.73. That's the amount I would have accumulated by age 35 if I'd listened to her at 16 and just saved $20 a week or $80 a month. Because of a magical phenomenon known as compound interest, which is basically the eighth wonder of the world, according to none other than infamous physicist Albert Einstein. Compound interest means that you're earning interest not only on the money you've invested, but also on the interest that your interest investment earns over time. By comparison, only saving that money without investing it and earning compound interest at an annual rate of 10% would amount to $18,000 and to 18,000, $240. Still a nice chunk of change, but nothing like $49,112.73. Unfortunately, my mindset didn't just stop me from saving those $20. I carried it into adulthood and skipped numerous opportunities to save and secure my financial future. I believed that I needed to have large sums of money to make saving worthwhile. Whether it was passing up on employer matched retirement contributions, saving my spare change, failing to establish an emergency fund, or overlooking opportunities to invest in my future, my beliefs about saving caused me to miss out on the growth and security that could have been achieved through disciplined saving. My big oversight was that I didn't realize my mom was dreaming big and thinking small. Dreaming big meant envisioning a future when I would have a strong foundation of financial stability and responsibility. Thinking small involved breaking down that vision into small, actionable steps. By encouraging me to start working at 16 and save even a small amount from each paycheck, my mom was trying to teach me the importance of building strong financial habits early on and the power that consistent small efforts can have over time. Often we point children or we point teenagers to a job, but we don't really express those things in detail. Dream big, think small is the ultimate example of perseverance in personal finance. I eventually realized that my mother was right all along. The realization hit even harder when I considered the additional challenges my mom knew I was likely to face as a woman navigating the workforce. She understood from her own experience the importance of leveraging time as a driving factor, especially when your income is limited. My mother recognized that financial security wasn't a guarantee for everyone in a society plagued by income inequality and still remains so. And rather than ignore this, she was trying to teach me a valuable lesson: be proactive. She knew that the deck was often going to be stacked against individuals like me, and that incremental savings is an essential tool for overcoming those barriers. By leveraging time as a driving factor, she knew that even limited income could be transformed into a powerful force for change. And we will stop there for today. If you are an adult, a full grown adult, listening to this broadcast today, I want you to think about your first job. Do you remember what your first job was and how much money you were making? I can remember my first job because I created my first job for myself. I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So whether I was working for myself, creating jobs for myself during my high school time, I my very first job was, like I said, it was a job I created for myself. I think I was between 10 or 11, something like that. And the job I created for myself was mowing lawns. And me and my stepbrother, or my stepbrother and I, we would go around our neighborhood with our lawnmower on the weekends, and we would ask people would they like their lawns cut. And my stepfather had a lawn business. Sometimes we would help him, but when he wasn't doing the lawn care business, we would do our neighborhood yards. And we were charging $40 a yard. and we were getting it done. My stepbrother would do the mowing for the most part, and then I would come behind him and do the raking and the bagging of the grass and the leaves, and we would get paid $40 a lawn. Now, I don't know um, if people are still doing that. I don't know if young people are still doing that because you have so many landscape companies now, but that was a great way for us to understand the value of creating our own wealth. So that was the very first job I had. Then at 13, I started working for one of my family's businesses. It was a restaurant, and I was the bus person. I would pick up the dishes. I was taught how to stack dishes. Um, and I was taught how to stack plates in order to bring multiple things to the table. I was the dishwasher, and then I moved up to sort of like the short order type of cooking, where I learned how to make breakfast. Even though I didn't really know how to cook, I could do those basic things. And so they allowed me to do a little bit of that. And then I went on to work at my family's corner store, which is still in operation. It's one of the oldest Black businesses in South Florida, corner stores wise. And so I have been working. I've been always trying to figure out how can I generate income? How can I generate revenue? And this was before I really understood a lot about economy or class or anything like that, because there was times where my family at some seasons of life was doing better, and at other seasons of life we went all the way to rock bottom and being unhoused. So I want you to think about that for yourself. Do you remember your very first job, what it felt like, how much money you were making, and what did you feel like? She said when she was younger, she didn't feel like saving for the future or the far off future was a thing. But now looking back, she realizes, like she said, her mother was right. By the time I was in high school, I had three jobs. I was still participating in extracurricular activities. I ran track and cross country. Um, I played basketball for a hot minute until I got injured, and then my mother said, absolutely not. But even in spite of my extracurricular activities, I was still working at my family's corner store. Let's see. I was still working at my family's corner store, but I was also running my own singing telegram business, and I charged two songs for $25. And I was also running my own massage business, and I charged $1 per minute to give people back massages. So I was making my own money in high school, and I was able to pay for my own things when it came to like my senior time. My mother didn't have to worry about paying for those things for me. Now, I couldn't afford everything, right? So I didn't get everything I wanted, but I was very proud of myself because I was saving my money and I was able to pay for the things that I did want to participate in for my senior year. So I want you to be thinking about that. Again, think about and ask yourself, what was my first job? Do I even remember my first job? How much money was I making? And what were my thoughts around money then? What were your thoughts as a young person about money? I knew during that time that my family was not bringing in a lot of income. And so there were things that I wanted to participate in, things I wanted to do, clothes I wanted to buy, entertainment I wanted to participate in. I knew that I was going to have to pay for it. Um, but I will say that if you have a young person in your life and you're a parent and your child doesn't have to go out to get a job, I would encourage you to make education your child's job. There are some parents that say, hey, I want my child to focus in, hone in on their education. They're going to have their whole entire life to work. They typically are. Right? Most people are going to be working at least from 18 to 65. And so some parents say, "Hey, I don't want to introduce that kind of work." And especially in Americans work grind society where lots of compromising things are happening in workplaces with hours, with pay, all of those things. And they said, I don't want my child to experience that. I want my child to focus solely on their education, solely on their extracurricular activities. I want them to build their mind. Um, I want them to be in a place where if they want to do scholarships, they can. And I the bill when it comes to the activities, when it comes to education, all those pieces, right? There's more programs out here now, definitely than when I was in high school. There's lots of ways that you can save and pay for your child's college education, provided you know that they're in the same state, different programs like that. So there are more options now than there were before. And so I'd like to hear your comments and your thoughts about that. What do you think about your child, if you are a parent, what do you think about your child working early versus them focusing solely on their schoolwork, focusing solely on maybe sports or extracurricular activities, and then going to college and then getting a place of employment? Do you feel like that is a good route for them? Or are you the parent that says, nah, 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 before my child leaves my house, they're going to know the power of a dollar. They're going to respect earning money. And I want to make sure when they hit 16 or, you know, the legal age limit, they're going to start working. For me, it was a matter of number one, I already had an entrepreneur spirit. Number two, I already had family that owned businesses that could sort of guide me through some of the working process. And then number three, there were points in my childhood where we actually needed more money and more income. And so my brother and I were both working to support our household. So we had different things happening at different points in my childhood. I want to hear from you though. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to open it up, Pastor Ben, to talk bedtime. And we're going to chop it up here for about 15, 20 minutes. All right, I have sent that link to you. I'm going to chop it up. Tell me what you think. I know that was our last section was about saving, but our first portion of our talk today was on weight stigma. I didn't have a name for it, but now I do, and I'm going to talk about it probably on Black Table Talk because I've definitely seen it. I've definitely seen people get treated poorly because of the stigma around weight. I will say, as a adult woman, I didn't necessarily notice it growing up because I had always been pretty thin. And in some cases, looking back at some of my childhood pictures, I was like, I was malnutritioned a little bit. I just wasn't eating. I was eating a lot of junk food, a lot of sugar, a lot of candy. Um, and so I've been pretty thin most of my life. 5'9", 125 pounds, that's pretty thin. But obviously, with age and with growth and with things like perimenopause, I have, picked up and put on some weight. And so I am noticing people's response to people who are a little bit heavier. Now, according to quote unquote BMI, I'm not obese, and I'm not in the danger zone or whatever they calculate for like diabetes or pre-diabetes. I'm not that, but I do notice that people treat you differently when you are heavier in their mind, in their sight. If they've only known you at a certain weight class, the next time they see you, and we know black people are not very subtle when it comes to telling you that you put on weight. That's the kindest way I'm going to say that. Black people, I'm going to need us to be better all the way around when it comes to telling people they either put on weight or they lost a lot of weight. Okay? Either one of those. If a person drops a lot of weight, we have a lot of commentary around that. A lot of times we associate it with something negative. Sometimes we
Hmm.
associate it with drug addiction. Okay? And that may not be what's happening with the person. They really just might be eating better and slimming down. And then on the other hand of that, we be saying some outrageous stuff when people put on weight. Okay? Women who deal with perimenopause, especially the accumulation of fat around the waist in the middle, they often get asked, "So when is the baby due?" Highly inappropriate. I can't even tell you how inappropriate that is to say to a stranger if you don't know them. And some people don't see anything wrong with it. But if you don't know that person and they're not volunteering information, why is that your first go-to thing to say to somebody? I don't know. But I've seen it. And I've seen women have to sort of gather themselves to say, because now they have to explain to you, no, it's not a child. And then they have to explain to you, because you're looking for an explanation of why is their stomach so big. So now they're having to divulge to a stranger, well, I'm not pregnant, but I do have some health issues going on. Nobody wants to have that conversation with you. You're not their doctor. We got to do better in that area. All right, Pastor Ben, take it over.
Yeah, because in our community, they can say, "Oh, you sure did put on weight.
Mm-hmm.
Girl, you fat."
Mm-hmm. Girl, you done got so
Yeah.
big.
Hmm. Yeah.
And like I
But
said, I've been small all of my life. So most of my relatives who might see me now, they might be surprised because I've definitely put on weight. You know, I'm like I said, I'm not in the obese category, and I'm not pre-diabetic or anything like that. But I know that I have put on weight. Don't ask me if I'm working on it. I am working on it though, by the way. I work
yeah.
out several times a week, but I also understand that some things are hormonal, and you can work out 50, 11 times a week. If it's hormonal, you're going to have to tackle it in a different aspect. And maybe she will talk about that in Live Nourished. But go ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have a way of saying things to each other.
Yeah. But my first job, I didn't have a choice.
Mm.
My dad owned his own landscaping business.
See, there you go.
So guess what my first job was?
I can tell you, bagging grass and leaves, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. As a little boy, then I graduated to the
Mm-hmm.
Grammy had all that stuff. Always, yeah. But the first leaves, stuff that was raked, that
Mm-hmm.
was it.
And I know back
Yeah.
in the day, it wasn't like you were wearing gloves and all and protective stuff. Like if you have ever bagged leaves all day, you know by the time you get home, you are probably itching from that grass. It like it was cool at first until we did five
Mm-hmm.
houses in a day. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he tipped us more than he paid us. I'll be honest. He tipped us more than he paid us. But the reality was because I saw that, right? I said, huh, if we learn how to work the mower, I already bagged the leaves. You know, when he's off doing, because he was a what do you call it, a CDL, like the truck driver. He drove
Mm-hmm.
18 wheelers, so he would be gone for periods at a time. And we're like, hey, the lawnmower's just sitting there. You know, we don't have a car to drive around everywhere to ask, but we can certainly hit up our neighborhood, you know. And so we would
Mm-hmm.
take the lawnmower out, we would roll the lawnmower. You see us coming down the street with the lawnmower, going house to house. Now, in today's America, obviously, I wouldn't recommend that either. But we would go house to house and say, hey, we'll cut your yard for $40. And we did it. And we were very good at it and we made good money. I remember the first time I came back home, and it's probably why I have such a strong memory about it. I remember I came back home, I think we had done 2 or 3 yards the first time, and we came back and we showed my mother the money. And she was like, where y'all get this money from? I was like, we worked for it. We cut some yards today. And she didn't stop us from doing it. And that was
Mm-hmm.
the other part. Because she knew the people in our neighborhood for the most part, she didn't stop us from trying to earn money for ourselves. And I think that was a part of my growth and development and just learning a level and a measure of independence. And that's why I say I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear from parents on this. You know, if your child has an entrepreneur spirit, what are you doing with that versus I feel like my child has to go and earn some money. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I wouldn't force them to.
Mm-hmm.
If they, I'll put it this way: if they have an entrepreneurial neural spirit, then push them a little bit, help them,
Mm-hmm.
give them something to work with, support them in that, give them ideas. Now, if they don't, you may say, okay, okay, you're at this age, 16, you need to start looking for a job. Have them to get a little job or something. Doesn't have to be anything big.
Mm-hmm.
If you know some friends that's got some stuff going on, that'll hire them. Even just to stock some shelves,
Mm-hmm.
anything. Clean up around their house here and there every now and then, anything, so they can see. Listen, if I work,
Mm-hmm.
I get money.
Mm-hmm.
See, you're
So yeah,
earning
so
it
this
then.
so building that work ethic, because that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. Like in today's America, right, with especially with what's about to happen in Florida and some other places where they want to loosen the child labor laws to allow children to work at night or overnight and stuff like that. I'm like, you have to now strike a balance between I want my child to learn independence and self sufficiency, and at the same time, I don't want my child to become exploited
Mhm.
by the current capitalistic, we don't care about you system of work, you know? And so I think that's a good idea of trying to connect your child to people maybe in your life, in your circle, in your community that already have businesses and having them to maybe work under them or to apprentice with them to earn income. I think actually that's a really good idea because you have a little bit more, um, what's the word I'm looking at for? You have a little bit more familiarity with the person, you know, and you can
Mhm.
communicate a little, I think, a little bit better about what your child actually needs versus the big box corporation. who only cares about a number and a profit and a bottom line, then
Mhm.
your child might be exploited in those systems. Um, just being realistic. My brother's job, when my brother got a job, I think he was 15 at the time, and he was working at Burger King down in South Florida, and their Burger King was robbed, and my brother was pistol whipped. And so after that experience, my mom was like, "You're not going back there." It's a dangerous spot, right? So he wound up working at a car wash place after that, and he worked there for many years. So yeah, I think that's a good idea in terms of if you want your child to start working, start earning. Obviously, if you have your own business, you know, have them work under you. Listen, I know we kind of joke about it sometimes, but Beyonce has her children on the payroll. They working. I mean, they might be enjoying their work a little bit more than some other young people, but they are still
Mhm.
working. You know, they are still getting the skills, doing something that they enjoy doing. They're doing it with their mother, but they are still in essence working.
Mhm.
What do you think about the weight stigma issue?
Now, I'm gonna say this because in my family, most of my sisters were on the small side, except for the one that I was always the most closest to. We got into trouble together. Now she was always on the chunky side. This was the one I taught to play basketball. And it seems as once she started playing basketball, she slimmed down a little bit, but she was still heavy set.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's almost as small as I am, maybe just a little bit bigger. And drugs had nothing to do with it. She lost the weight.
Mm-hmm.
See, so for me, your body type is your body type.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you choose to lose weight and you can, that's great. If you choose not to, guess what? What does that have to do with your personality, your
Nothing.
character?
Nothing.
Nothing. Your character is the most important thing. So,
And he, and I do want to say, go ahead. I'll finish when you're done.
so as far as body shaming and stuff like that, to me, it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
What that shows is your character,
It does, and I
which
don't
is
think
not
I don't
good.
think a lot of people realize um, how very telling it can be when it comes to your care. When it comes to your character, I would also say, because I know several people in my life right now are going through, and they're using either surgery. You know, a lot of people are not necessarily doing the gastric bypass; they're doing lap band. Some people are taking the GLP-1 pill, I think it is. So you have to also look at how you're losing the weight and the things that you're going to need to do in order to maintain that. But ultimately, it is your decision. Like, I don't knock people for how they choose to lose weight. That is your personal health decision. Just make sure that you're not putting your life in danger to lose the pounds. One of my friends, yeah, one of my friends passed away from complications with gastric bypass. Very young woman. We still miss her to this day. Um, but she wanted to lose the weight, and you know, it turned out to be a very dangerous choice for her to have that surgery, and it's been, you know, several decades now, almost several decades, where she passed away. But I felt like, you know, she was a beautiful person, but people taunting her sometimes about the weight chose her to go into that decision. And then she, with complications from that decision, she's no longer with us. So
Mhm.
I would just also just say to people who are considering that, make sure that you're putting your health and your safety first. Like I met with my doctor about the perimenopause issue, and she was like, because you're not any of these things, I don't want to put you on something that could cause more adverse issues than you need. Like she was honest with me. She was like, you're healthy. You don't need these things. Yes, you picked up some weight around your midsection, but this and its side effects could actually be more damaging to you if you chose to go this route.
Mhm.
So I appreciate having a medical professional be honest with me to say, yes, people are taking this, but some of them are being hit with the side effects. And the side effects are bringing on health issues that they didn't have before that are now going to be chronic health issues because this medication triggered those things in them. See, that's the part they're not telling you about. You see the commercial and you're like, oh, yeah, just pop this pill and everything be fine. Nope.
Mhm.
So you do have to weigh what's happening in your own body. Nobody can make that decision for you. So that's why I'm doing some other processes to work around, to work my midsection, um, some isolated things, working on some hormonal control things because I want to do something that actually makes sense for me to do and that doesn't put me out of health just because I'm trying to get rid of something around my midsection.
Mhm.
I'm not ill. It's just this is one of the things that happens with perimenopause. And so, you know, again, see your doctor, talk to your dietitian. Most health insurance plans offer dietitians now. So if you have health insurance, look into that, see what kind of program they already offer you so that you're not just, getting online and paying for something that your insurance might already cover. And if it's the person that you want, ask them, do you take this insurance? Are you, you know, in the process or does your company have or take on insurance if you really want to use that person? But yeah, that's what I wanted to say about that. Final thoughts.
We covered a lot.
We did.
But listen, as long as you're healthy and you're comfortable, don't care what anybody says about your body. Be happy with what you have. And as far as work, at a young age, we need to teach our children the value of a dollar. And one way to do that is giving them something small to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's like, okay, do the laundry, give them a few dollars for that. You know, my mom, out of eight children, she would tell you I am the only one that the last 2 years of my high school, she didn't have to do a dime for me because, like you, I got my own little lawnmower and started doing my own stuff on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Had for school, paid for it, my senior, all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff, paid for it. And it was for me, it was a good feeling that I was capable of doing these things. So it actually helps that child if they do something like that and they say, I got my own money.
Mm-hmm.
I can do things that I want to do.
Yeah.
I can help take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're not your responsibility, you're still your parents' responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it made me feel like I was accomplishing something.
The only time I regretted having money, I'm gonna tell you the only time, was when I decided that I was gonna take my hard-earned money and buy me some mini skirts. You remember those mini skirts? The mini skirts that was this big, literally. I forget the store. I think I don't know if it was Rainbow or Forever 21. It was like one of those teenish stores, and I had bought me. I had all kind of colors, red and yellow and plaid, and this was junior high. I was buying these little mini skirts. My mama didn't like them, but they were small enough to hide in my book bag. So I would put my clothes on, then I would go to school, then I would change into my mini skirt and walk around the school. And one of those nosy adults called my parent and said, "Do you know that your daughter is changing her clothes when she get to school, walking around the school with a mini skirt on?" Now, see, that's a whole other thing. In 2025, that administrator would probably be cussed out. But back then, parents wanted to know that kind of stuff. So when I got home from
Hmm.
school, there was a bonfire going in my front yard. And you know what that bonfire was? It was all my little mini
Those mini
skirts that I
skirts.
had bought. When I tell you I was livid, that was one time when I literally saw my money go up in flames. And I was like, I know good and well this lady didn't bonfire my mini skirts. And so I was forbidden from taking these mini skirts and wearing them at school. But that didn't stop me from going back and buying me some more mini skirts. Because I was like, I know good and well. I know good and well she didn't burn all my mini skirts. So. But that's my middle school years. Um, but that was one time that I felt like I was watching my money, like the little money with the wings on it.
Hmm.
I was watching my money fly away into the smoke. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. I hope you all have a safe and wonderful weekend. Tomorrow, I will be training some teachers, some more teachers in some success for their certification. So I'm excited about that. We have a sold out course. And so that's what I'll be doing on Saturday. It's a closed training, but I'm very thankful for it. And then Sunday, we'll be back here with Sunday Dialogue with myself, and that is at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what, Pastor Ben?
Light.
Light. Take care, everyone. Be well, and most importantly,